Admiral Kitei stared at the holographic display, his weathered face lit by the red dots of enemy ships. Each dot represented thousands of the swarm's biomechanical fighters. His own fleet's blue markers were fewer now, too few. In the last 6 hours, he had lost 30% of his ships. Admiral, Commander Hanul's voice broke through his thoughts. 3rd and 5th Squadrons report critical damage. Their shields won't last another wave. She stood straight, her uniform perfect, even after 18 hours of battle. But her eyes showed the same fear Kitei felt in his gut. Kitei nodded slowly. The swarm had adapted to every weapon, every strategy they had used. That was what the swarm did best, they learned. They changed, they evolved. The Alliance's careful, calculated battle plans fell apart against an enemy that could reshape itself mid-fight. "Send the order to fall back," Kitei said. The words tasted bitter in his mouth. "We can't lose any more ships." He watched as the blue dots began their careful retreat, maintaining perfect formation even now. That was the Alliance way order, precision protocol. Hanul didn't move. Instead, she pulled out a data tablet and placed it on Kitei's command desk. "Sir, there might be another option." Her voice was quiet, meant only for him. "Do you remember the report from the Edge sectors? About the new species we contacted 6 months ago? The humans?" Kitei frowned. "The primitives who still use physical projectiles in space combat?" He had read the report, of course. The Alliance's first contact team had been unimpressed. Humans built ships with exposed weapons, used unpredictable battle formations, and seemed to have no proper military doctrine at all. "Yes, sir. The same primitives who drove off a swarm scout fleet 3 weeks ago." Kitei's head snapped up. "What? That wasn't in any report I received." Hanul's fingers moved across the tablet, bringing up classified battle footage. Because most of the analysis division refused to believe it. They said the data must be wrong. The video showed human ships moving in chaotic patterns, breaking every rule of space combat Kitei had ever learned. Their weapons were crude, their shields flickered unevenly, but "They won," Kitei whispered, watching as the swarm ships exploded one by one. "How?" The swarm couldn't predict them. Hanul's voice held a hint of excitement now. "Look at their flight patterns. There is no pattern. Each ship moves independently. They use different weapons for each attack. The swarm's adaptive algorithms couldn't keep up with the chaos." Another explosion rocked Kitei's flagship. The shield warning sirens began to wail. On the main display, more blue dots winked out. "Sir," Hanul said, "we have nothing left to lose. The humans have an embassy station at the Edge. I can have Captain Sunmai there in 6 hours." Kitei looked at his fleet, at the perfect formation that had served the Alliance for 10,000 years. Then he looked at the crude but effective chaos in the human battle footage. Everything in his training told him this was wrong, that turning to primitives for help was against protocol. But he thought of all the crews who trusted him, all the worlds depending on this fleet to keep them safe. Protocol hadn't saved them. Precision hadn't saved them. Maybe it was time for something different. "Send the message," Kitei said finally. "Tell them." He paused, swallowing his pride. "Tell them we need their help." "And Hanul?" "Yes, Admiral. When you write the request, add that we'll pay any price they ask. We need them now, more than they need us." As Hanul hurried away, Kitei watched another squadron of swarm ships appear on his display. He would hold them off for 6 more hours. He had to. Help was coming, even if it came in the form he least expected. Captain Sunmi's shuttle docked at Earth's orbital station with a soft thud. She checked her translator one last time, straightened her Silver Alliance uniform, and tried to hide how tired she felt after the emergency faster-than-light jump. The station's basic design still surprised her: exposed metal beams, visible wiring, and manual airlocks. Everything about it screamed primitive to her Alliance-trained eyes. The airlock cycled open with a hiss. Colonel James Cooper waited on the other side, wearing what humans called a dress uniform, a simple dark blue outfit with cloth badges pinned to it. No smart fabric, no status indicators, no rank projections. Sunmi had to stop herself from frowning. "Captain Sunmi," Cooper said, offering his hand. Another primitive gesture, but she had studied human customs. She shook his hand, noting his firm but careful grip. "We were surprised to get your emergency message. The Alliance usually sends us automated diplomatic updates. Usually, we are not losing a war," Sunmi said bluntly. She saw Cooper's eyebrows rise slightly. "May we speak somewhere private?" Cooper led her through the station's corridors. Other humans stopped to stare at her Alliance uniform. Some looked curious, others suspicious. They reached a simple meeting room with a view of Earth below. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Cooper asked, noticing her gaze on the blue planet. It is. Chaotic," Sunmi said. "Oceans and land mixed together, weather patterns that change daily, seasons that vary by location." She turned to face him. "Like your people." Cooper smiled. "Is that why the Alliance dismissed us 6 months ago? Too chaotic?" Sunmi felt her face grow warm. She had been part of that first contact team. They had called humans too unpredictable and diplomatically immature. Now she had to ask these same humans for help. "We were wrong," she said simply. "We learned that 3 weeks ago, when your ships fought off a swarm scout fleet. The same swarm that is now breaking through our best defenses." Cooper's smile faded. He sat down at the table, motioning for her to join him. "The swarm. Nasty pieces of work. They adapt to everything you throw at them, right?" "Everything logical," Sunmi agreed. "Everything that follows proper military doctrine." "But your ships." She pulled out a data tablet, showing him the battle footage Hanul had discovered. "Your ships did what we thought was impossible. By being unpredictable," Cooper said, watching the video. "By not following proper doctrine." "Yes." Sunmi took a deep breath. "Colonel Cooper, the Alliance fleet is losing. Admiral Kitei sent me to ask to beg, if necessary, for human help. We need your ships, your tactics, your—" She struggled with the word, "your chaos." Cooper watched her for a long moment. "You know, Captain, 6 months ago, your people told us we needed to change, to become more like the Alliance if we wanted to join the galactic community. Now you're saying our primitive ways might save you?" Sunmi met his eyes. "Yes, we were arrogant. We were wrong. And we are dying." She stood up and, breaking every rule of Alliance diplomatic protocol, bowed deeply to him. "Please help us." When she straightened, Cooper was standing too. "Well," he said, "it's not every day an advanced alien civilization admits they were wrong." He pressed a button on the room's simple communication panel. "Cooper, here. Get me the Joint Chiefs. Priority 1. He looked back at Sunmi. "Let's show the swarm what human chaos can really do." For the first time in days, Sunmi felt hope. It wasn't the calm, orderly hope she was used to. It was wild, unpredictable, human hope. And somehow, that made it stronger. Major de Jong walked into the Alliance flagship's engineering bay, carrying an old Earth laptop. The Alliance engineers stared at the scratched metal case and the stickers that covered its lid. To them, it probably looked like a child's toy compared to their sleek holographic workstations. Young Engineer Ji-ho stepped forward from the group. "Major, I am assigned to assist you." His Alliance uniform was perfectly pressed, but his eyes showed real curiosity. "Though I don't understand why you brought such basic equipment." "Sometimes basic is better," De Jong said with a smile. He opened the laptop and pulled up a simple program. "Look at this. It's what we call an electromagnetic pulse, but with a twist." Ji-ho leaned in, then frowned. The frequency pattern makes no sense. It's random, not random. Chaotic. There's a difference. Du Young pointed to the screen. See, the swarm learns patterns, right? They spot a weapon's frequency and adapt their shields. But what if the frequency never repeats? What if it changes based on this formula? He showed Ji-ho the math. The young engineer's eyes went wide. This is primitive chaos theory. We studied it in history class. The Alliance abandoned it centuries ago for more precise methods. Maybe that was a mistake. Du Young typed a few commands, and the pattern on screen shifted again and again. The swarm expects patterns. Their whole system is built on finding and countering patterns. But chaos, real chaos, that's harder to fight. Other engineers gathered around, their perfect alliance order forgotten in their curiosity. Du Young saw their expressions change from doubt to interest as he explained more. Look at alliance weapons, he said, pointing to their sleek energy cannons. Perfect beams, perfect frequencies, perfect every time. And that's why the swarm beats them. But what if we add some chaos? Ji-ho was already working at his station, running simulations. The success rate? It's higher than our current weapons. Much higher. He looked up at Du Young. But the design is so messy. The energy efficiency is terrible. Who cares about efficiency if it works? Du Young walked over to the main weapon display. We humans learned something important during our wars. Sometimes, the messy solution is the right solution. The swarm thinks like you do, always looking for the perfect pattern. That's why they can't handle us. An older engineer spoke up. This goes against everything we know about weapon design. Exactly, Du Young said. And that's why it will work. Ji-ho, can you help me modify one of your pulse cannons? Let's show them what human chaos can do. Ji-ho nodded eagerly. The other engineers looked uncertain, but they moved to help. Du Young saw their perfect order start to bend, just a little. They began to ask questions, to suggest their own messy ideas. Hours later, they tested the modified weapon. The pulse it fired looked wrong to Alliance eyes. The beam flickered and wavered, its frequency jumping wildly, according to Du Young's chaos formula. But when it hit the simulated swarm shield, it broke through. It's not pretty, Du Young told the amazed engineers, but neither is losing. Sometimes, you have to embrace the chaos to win. Ji-ho was already working on another modification. Major, he said, not looking up from his work. What other messy ideas do you have? Du Young grinned and opened another file on his old laptop. Ever heard of something we call a shotgun? The human touch was spreading. Not like a perfect alliance program, but like a wild, unpredictable human virus. And that was exactly what they needed. Captain Tae-won stormed into the testing chamber, his face red with anger. You want to put what in my ships? He demanded. Du Young looked up from where he and Ji-ho were working on their latest project. Metal parts and wires covered the tables around them. Tools lay scattered everywhere, breaking every alliance rule about proper workspace organization. Physical kinetic weapons, Du Young said calmly. Simple metal slugs, fired at very high speeds. Barbaric, Tae-won spat. We stopped using physical weapons 1,000 years ago. They're inefficient, primitive. Ji-ho stepped forward. Captain, please watch this test. He had changed in the past week. His uniform was slightly wrinkled now, and there was grease on his hands. But his eyes were bright with excitement. On the testing range, they had set up a standard swarm shield configuration. Ji-ho pressed a button, and their new weapon fired. A simple metal slug, accelerated to incredible speed, slammed into the shield. The shield flickered, tried to adapt, but there was nothing to adapt to. The slug was just metal, moving fast. It punched straight through. See? Du Young said. The swarm's shields are designed to stop energy weapons. They expect patterns, frequencies, power signatures. But this is just physics. Basic, simple, unstoppable physics. The one frowned, but Du Young saw the doubt in his eyes. And what about this? He pointed to another device on their workbench. This mining charge? That's my idea, Ji-ho said proudly. We took old mining explosives and changed them to create random blast patterns. The swarm can't predict where the explosion will go, because even we don't know. Every blast is different. It's chaos, T1 said. Exactly. Du Young picked up the charge. Chaos is our weapon. Look at this. He led them to a computer showing battle simulations. Standard alliance attacks against swarm ships. See how the swarm adapts. Now watch our new weapons. The simulation showed their modified weapons in action. Kinetic slugs tore through shields. Random pattern explosions confused swarm systems. EMP pulses with chaotic frequencies shut down swarm ships completely. But the energy cost. T1 started. Who cares about energy cost if we win? Ji-ho interrupted. Even a week ago, he would never have dared speak to a captain like that. Sorry, sir, but we're losing this war because we're too worried about being efficient. The humans taught me that sometimes the messy way is the right way. Du Young watched Du-Young carefully. The captain walked around their workspace, looking at their inventions. Each one broke alliance rules. Each one was messy, inefficient, and crude by alliance standards. And each one worked better than anything they had tried before. Show me the full simulation, T1 said finally. They ran the complete battle plan. Alliance ships fitted with their new weapons, firing in random patterns, creating chaos the swarm couldn't predict or counter. When it ended, the simulation showed something no one had seen in months, a clear victory. Du-Young was quiet for a long moment. Then he straightened his uniform and said, "How long to install these weapons on my ship?" "We can start right now," Ji-ho said eagerly. Major Du Young has more ideas too. Wait until you see what he calls a scattershot system. Primitive weapons, Du-Young muttered, but now there was a slight smile on his face. Fine. Show me everything. If we're going to fight like humans, we might as well do it properly. Du Young grinned. One more alliance officer had learned to embrace the chaos. They might win this war after all. Admiral Ki-tae watched his display as the combined fleet moved into position. The alliance ships still flew in their perfect formation, but now they carried human weapons. Next to them, the human ships moved in patterns that made his head hurt to watch. "All ships report ready," Commander Hanul said from her station. "Human fleet signals, they are prepared to engage." She paused. "Sir, they're requesting permission to do their thing." Ki-tae almost smiled. 2 weeks ago, that casual language would have shocked him. Now, he just nodded. "Tell them they are free to engage as they see fit." The swarm fleet appeared exactly where they expected, right on the edge of their sensor range. Thousands of biomechanical ships, their organic hulls gleaming with metallic implants. They moved in their usual perfect attack pattern. "Now we see if the humans were right," Ki-tae said quietly. "All ships, begin attack sequence." The battle started like no other in Alliance history. The human ships shot forward in random directions, each one flying a different path. The swarm's predictive systems tried to track them and failed. Crude metal slugs from the new kinetic weapons smashed through their shields. Chaotic energy pulses, designed by Ji-ho and Du Young, scrambled their systems. "Swarm ships are adapting to the kinetic weapons," Hanul reported. But before Ki-tae could worry, she added, "Human ships switching to mining charges. Random explosion patterns are very effective." On the screen, Ki-tae watched a human ship fly straight at a swarm cruiser. At the last second, it dropped what looked like old-fashioned space mines, each one exploding in a different pattern. The swarm ship's shields couldn't adapt to the chaos. Its hull cracked open like an egg. "Alliance ships, begin Phase 2, Kite ordered. His fleet opened fire with their modified weapons. Each shot was different from the last. Energy beams flickered in random patterns. Explosive charges created chains of unpredictable blasts. Even their traditional energy cannons had been adjusted to fire with varying power levels. "Swarm fleet showing signs of confusion," Newell said, excitement creeping into her voice. "Their adaptation protocols are failing. They can't predict our attack patterns because there are no patterns." A group of human ships flew past the bridge viewport, each one moving in its own way. Some spun as they fired, others zigzagged randomly. One seemed to be flying backward while dropping mines. It looked like complete chaos, but it was working. The swarm ships, used to fighting enemies they could predict, were falling apart. Their perfect formation broke as they tried to deal with too many different types of attacks at once. "Swarm ships breaking formation," Newell reported. 30% of their fleet showing critical damage. They're retreating." Kite stood up from his command chair. "Press the attack. Don't let them regroup and adapt." He watched as his fleet, flying with human chaos and Alliance precision combined, tore into the retreating swarm ships. "Message from Major de Young," Newell said. "He says chaos for the win and suggests we try something called Protocol Random to finish them off." Kite remembered when such casual language would have offended him. Now he just nodded. "Tell him to proceed. Let's show the swarm what chaos can really do." The battle wasn't over, but for the first time since the war began, Kite felt real hope. Sometimes, he realized, victory didn't come from perfect order. Sometimes it came from embracing the chaos. "They're adapting." Newell's voice cut through the chaos of battle. "The swarm is starting to predict our weapon patterns." On the main screen, Kite watched as swarm ships began blocking their attacks. Even the random explosions weren't working as well anymore. The swarm was learning, just as they always did. Major de Young's voice crackled over the command channel. "Time for Protocol Random." There was excitement in his voice, like a child about to show off a new toy. "Captain T1, Ji-Ho, are you ready?" "This is madness," Tae-1 said, but Kite heard the smile in his voice. "Ready when you are." De Young's next words shocked everyone. "All ships, from this moment on, you have complete freedom to fight however you want. No formations. No preset tactics. Every captain makes their own choices. Trust your gut." Kite almost choked. "Major, that's not a battle plan. That's pure chaos," De Young finished. "Exactly what we need." Look, the human ships suddenly broke apart, each one flying in a completely different way. Some spun in spirals while firing. Others played dead, then ambushed swarm ships that got too close. One captain turned his ship's weapons backward and used the recoil to push his ship forward faster than normal. Alliance ships follow their lead. Ji-Ho called out, "Remember the simulations we ran. Fight like humans." Kite watched in amazement as his perfect fleet dissolved into beautiful chaos. Each ship captain chose their own way to fight. Some copied the humans' wild moves. Others made up new tricks. Day-1's ship was flying upside down, firing all weapons in random directions and hitting more targets than ever. "The swarm's adaptation rate is dropping," Newell reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "Their predictive systems are overloading. They can't adapt to hundreds of different attack patterns at once." A swarm ship exploded nearby, torn apart by a combination of kinetic slugs, random pattern energy beams, and what looked like an improvised bomb made from spare engine parts. Kitai didn't even want to know where that came from. "Sir," Anil said, "other Alliance fleets are requesting our battle data. They're seeing our success." Kitai stood at his viewport, watching the battle unfold. Each ship fought like it was alone, yet somehow they all worked together. When one tactic stopped working, ships simply tried something new. There was no pattern for the swarm to learn, no strategy to counter. "Message from engineering," Anil said. "Jiho says he's giving ships direct control of their weapon frequencies. Every shot can be different now." The battle space lit up with thousands of different weapon blasts. Energy beams flickered between colors. Kinetic slugs flew in spiral patterns. Explosive charges created chains of random blasts. Not one ship fought the same way as another. "Swarm fleet losing coherence," Anil reported. "Their ships are. They're actually running into each other. Their coordination is breaking down completely." Du Yong's voice came over the channel again. "That's what happens when you rely too much on patterns and prediction. Sometimes the best pattern is no pattern at all." Kitai watched as more swarm ships began to fall. His fleet, his beautifully chaotic, completely unpredictable fleet, was winning. Not through perfect order or flawless strategy, but through pure, joyful chaos. "Send word to all Alliance fleets," Kitai ordered. Tell them it's time to learn how to fight like humans." Protocol Random was working. The swarm was falling. And Kitai finally understood what the humans had been trying to teach them all along. Sometimes, you had to let go of control to win. 1 month after Protocol Random first turned the tide of battle, Admiral Kitai stood in the Alliance Council chamber. The huge room was packed with fleet commanders, engineering chiefs, and political leaders from across the galaxy. On the main screen, footage of their latest victory played. "As you can see," Kitai said, pointing to the chaotic dance of ships on the screen, "the swarm fleet was completely destroyed. Not one of their ships escaped." He paused, looking at the amazed faces around him. "And we lost 0 ships. None." Murmurs filled the chamber. Just 2 months ago, such a victory would have seemed impossible. Now it was becoming normal. Major Du Young stepped forward, his simple human uniform standing out among the Alliance's perfect silver ones. "The key is controlled chaos," he explained. "Every ship acts independently, but they all work toward the same goal. The swarm can't adapt because there's nothing to adapt to." Jiho, now promoted to chief engineer, joined them. His uniform was wrinkled, and there were dark marks on his hands from working on engines. No one seemed to mind anymore. "We've started training programs to teach Alliance crews how to think more like humans," Jiho said. "How to be unpredictable, how to trust their instincts." He smiled. "It's not easy. Breaking 1,000 years of training never is. But it works." The screen showed a new image, an Alliance ship spinning through space, firing weapons in random patterns, while its captain made up attack plans on the spot. Next to it, a human ship flew backward, using its main gun's recoil to dodge enemy fire. "This is the future of space combat," Kitai declared. "Not perfect formations or careful plans, but controlled chaos. The humans taught us that sometimes the best way to win is to be unpredictable." Captain T1, who had once called human tactics barbaric, stepped up next. "My ship now holds the record for most swarm kills in a single battle," he said proudly. "We did it by flying upside down and sideways, firing our weapons in random patterns, and making up new tactics in the middle of the fight. It was fun." The word "fun" had never before been used in the Alliance Council chamber. But no one objected. "The swarm is retreating from Alliance space," Du Young announced. Their entire strategy depended on predicting and adapting to their enemies. But they can't predict chaos. They can't adapt to randomness. Every battle against our combined fleets is different from the last. Kite looked around the chamber. He saw faces that had once been locked in perfect alliance discipline, now showing excitement, creativity, even joy. The humans hadn't just taught them how to fight, they'd taught them how to think differently. "I propose," Kite said, "that we formally integrate human military doctrine into all alliance training. Not to replace our ways, but to add to them, to create something new, the perfect blend of alliance, precision, and human chaos." The vote was unanimous. As the chamber erupted in cheers, Kite saw Du Young grinning. "You know what this means?" Du Young asked. "Now you have to let humans join the alliance properly." Kite laughed. "After what you've shown us, we'd be fools not to." He looked at the battle footage again, at the beautiful chaos of ships dancing through space. "Though I suspect the alliance will never be quite the same." "Good," Jiho said, his hands already dirty from some new invention. "The same is boring. Chaos is much more interesting." The swarm had taught them to fear disorder. The humans had taught them to embrace it. And in that lesson lay not just victory, but a whole new way of seeing the universe.